Hello and welcome to another episode of I Guess I'll Do It with Pat House. Today I am super excited to have a repeat guest. I've been doing this podcast for 4 years now, and today's guest was my second guest on my third episode. There's so many TV appearances, his own specials, the Ted Alexandro Show. Today I have Ted Alexandro back on the podcast.
Thank you, buddy. Where do I stand with regards to like most frequent guests? Is this my second appearance?
This is your second appearance, and you are my second repeat guest. And oddly enough, this is just pure coincidence. My first repeat guest was my first guest ever. So
okay.
You would think I'm like going. You'd think I'm like going in an exact rotation, but that is not the case. But you are
I'm honored to be on the repeat list.
Well,
always good to spend time with you, buddy.
Thank you. Happy to have you back. And I listened to our episode yesterday, and like I said, that was my second time ever interviewing anybody on a podcast, and I hope I'm a little bit better now.
I had to carry you. I remember. I had to carry you.
You had to carry. One thing I was like, why am I speaking so fast? I don't know if it was a nervous energy or what, because I was brand new to it, but I was like, even in my own car listening to our episode yesterday, I was like, slow the fuck down, man.
Well, God bless you for listening back, because that's one of the hardest things to do.
It is.
Comedian, right?
It really is. So first things first, how are you? How you been?
I'm good, buddy. I'm in the midst, as I was telling you, I'm in the midst of a whirlwind tour. I'm on a bus tour with Jim Gaffigan.
That is awesome.
Doing 10 cities in 10 nights. So we just left San Antonio last night, and we just arrived in Thackerville, Oklahoma, where we're playing a casino tonight. I'm with Jim. His son Jack has been doing sets with us.
No kidding.
And Philly's own Todd Glass, the legend, is with us as well. So it's a good time, man.
I know Todd very, very well. He's been on this podcast before. Todd is an absolute hero of mine. He's also out of his mind. He's the best.
I can sign off on all of the above. He's great. I mean, he's so much fun to travel with, because he's always up for a good time, and he's always playing jokes and pulling pranks on people. So, he keeps things interesting.
Yeah, there's never a dull moment, ever. So how is the tour going? You guys are doing arenas and big theaters?
Yeah, it's a mix. Last night we were in an arena, the arena where the San Antonio Spurs play. So that was fun. That was probably,
that's
if I had to guess,
wild.
10,000 people. Yeah, they gave us, let me show you. They gave us Wembanyama jerseys. We all got Spurs Wembanyama jerseys. So that's pretty cool, man. Like that's my third jersey of the tour, because we also played a couple of like minor league, I think Pensacola, Florida. They gave us like a Blue Angels hockey, I guess they call it sweater in hockey parlance. And we also got one from Savannah. The Savannah Ghost Pirates is another minor league hockey team. So I need another suitcase by the end of this tour, man. They just keep giving us stuff. It's great.
What's the lineup on these shows?
Well, I typically tour just Jim and I. So he said to me, would you be open to kind of hosting the ceremony? So I do 5 up front. I bring up Jack, and he does about 3. And he's been killing, because he just kind of shits on his dad the whole time.
An open mic set in an arena.
Right? Yeah, it is pretty special. He's 18 years old. So to do, he's toured with us before, so this isn't like literally his first time on stage or anything. But yeah, to go from, I can't imagine doing that, in my early going, to be in front of 10,000 people.
No,
but yeah, he always rises to the occasion. He hasn't had a bad set yet, and the crowd is always rooting for him, because they know it's Jim's son, it's a young kid. But yeah, he rises to the occasion, and he's got jokes.
That's awesome. There's no better cushion for an audience in that situation. You can't even fathom a better situation.
No, it is perfect. Yeah, he's getting spoiled a little bit, but he's killing it. And then Todd comes on for about 10 to 12, and then I come back for about 10 after Todd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then so yeah, I do about a total of 15 altogether. And then Jim comes for, he does probably about 70, 75.
Wow, that's an awesome lineup. That is such an awesome lineup. Are you guys coming through
It's fun.
Philly at all?
No, this is Southern, like we started
Yeah,
in
Texas,
Savannah,
Oklahoma.
Georgia. Yeah, yeah, we were in New Orleans for a couple nights.
Did you get arrested this
And
time?
no, this time I was on my best behavior.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did remember that. I had my memories there
Did you
of
pull
getting
that bid
arrested.
out that night?
No, because honestly I don't even know if I could remember that bit. It's so long ago. But yeah, I could have mentioned it, but I did mention because I have more recent memories that my wife and I honeymooned there.
Oh,
We
okay.
did we did a week in Jamaica, and then we did like 5 days in New Orleans because I had dates with Jim, so I kind of just bookended it to go right into those shows.
That's really cool. I've never been to that city. Never been. It's on my list. I want to do stand up in all 50 states, but I've never even been to New Orleans, period. So I have to do stand up there, but that would also, knock that off my
Yeah.
list.
Oh yeah, you gotta move that to the front of the list, man.
I've heard that
I've
from
never
so
had.
many people, especially lately.
I mean, between just the spectacle of it all, the food, the music, yeah, you have to do that for sure. And I've stand up. The crowds are always good. I've done. What's funny is like I started touring with Jim like 9 years ago, and I was in the midst of a Southern tour when he kind of called me out of the blue. I was just doing this like B room tour that like some comedian friends had put together. So we were doing like Mobile, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi. We were doing these like
Mm-hmm.
back of bar type things, and one of them was in New Orleans also. And I was in the lobby of a Holiday Inn, and Jim just called me out of the blue. Like it wasn't like we were friends, so I was, I had his number, but we didn't talk that often. And he said, "I'm doing a 30-day bus tour. Do you want to do it?" So that was 9 years ago, and now here we are, full circle, doing another 10-city bus tour.
That's awesome. That
Yeah,
is
man.
awesome. So you're doing a 5-minute set and a 10-minute set in an arena. So there are thousands and thousands of people. What does your set consist of right now? Are you doing new stuff and old stuff? Just new stuff? How do you approach the two different sets in that setting?
Yeah, it's all new stuff, like talking about family, because I have two kids now. So there's some family stuff. There's some stuff about moving out of New York up to Connecticut. There's some stuff about I don't know if you saw. I posted a new like joke about team names changing, but
Mm-hmm.
only the losing teams have to change their name. Like
Yes.
the Chiefs and the Braves get to hang on until until
That's a
they
really
start
funny
losing.
bit. I actually watched it this morning.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So yeah, I have some sports related stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like those are the three. Those are the three chunks, but it's interesting because I'm used to doing 15 to 20 minutes when I'm opening for Jim. So you have that flow in mind,
Yeah,
but
15
doing that 5
in one shot. Yeah, 15 to 20 in one set.
in one shot. Yeah. So when you're doing five, there has to be a bit of a flow, and you have to almost get them a little quicker too, because I want to like get the show moving, bring Jack up. I want to set him up so that they're warmed up, so yeah, it's a little bit of a different task, but it's cool, man. Like I'm down with like anything that you have to kind of figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that takes you out of like maybe a little complacency or a little what's normal is always good because you have to use different skills.
So many comics are performing in arenas now. Has the sound and stage setup gotten better, do you think, overall? Because I remember seeing arena shows maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I thought the sound was like muffled. It was kind of new. But now that you have Segura and Bert and Nate and Amy Schumer and a ton of other comics that do arenas, like has the overall production gotten better for that kind of environment? Is that a weird question?
Yeah, I think it has, yeah, because I think, like you said, there was probably a learning curve with all of that, and I think initially for a lot of these venues, like they almost took comedy as like a night off, because they're usually doing these big theatrical shows where they're loading in like all sorts of backdrops and lighting and all
Pyro, and
this
they're
stuff.
setting up for Adele or like Green Day or something.
Yes, yes. So then when we come in, they're like, "Ah, great! We don't have to do anything today." So sometimes there was a learning curve for like they had to, you know, make sure that everything was on point, even though there was a lot less for them to do. So sometimes we run into that, but I do think overall it has gotten a lot better. And like you say, this is kind of like the golden age for comedy in that it used to be making the jump from the clubs to theaters was where it capped off
Yes,
really,
yes.
and you'd see the occasional, maybe like someone who was a phenomenon like Steve Martin or Eddie Murphy, like just these meteoric rises to the top. But now, like you say, it's almost like the trajectory. Like if you get big enough either through touring or television appearances or podcasting,
Podcast. Yep.
right? It's created these other avenues to reach that big an audience. So it is really cool to see.
It's crazy that there's probably, I would say, 12 to 15 comics out there that are arena acts now, and that's a big number.
It is. It is. I mean, even when we walked in today, I saw the ads for the upcoming shows. It was like Kevin Hart. It was Seinfeld. Yeah. So there are, like you say, there's a solid number of people that's pretty much all they play.
That's Kevin Hart is from Philly, and a couple years ago he played at Lincoln Financial Field where the Eagles play, and 55,000 people, like outside. And I know Larry the
Incredible.
Cable Guy filmed a special in Nebraska at the Cornhusker Stadium, and that just absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, it is. It's great for comedy. I mean, for comedy, the word,
Yes,
the category. I don't know if it's great for comedy, the experience, because I haven't done it yet or seen it. I know Bill Burr did Fenway Park.
Fenway. Gabriel Iglesias did Dodger Field last summer, Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure, like, it's a fun night out. But I just wonder. I mean, the people said the same thing about arenas, right? Like, oh, can you still have a good time? Like, will comedy translate? And it does, obviously. And also, they have all these huge screens too. Like last night in San Antonio, they have all of the jumbotrons
Yes,
above the stage. So a lot of people are just watching that,
I know
obviously.
people do tend to watch the TVs more, even in a theater. It's really because you're so small, but then with a
Yeah,
comic like you or Jim, where facial expressions are involved, in order to really get the full experience, they kind of have to watch the screens.
yeah, yeah. I think it's human nature that if there's a screen on your eyes start to wander that
Dude,
way. So
even
it's
at the
probably
Stress Factory, I find myself watching the TVs indoors.
yeah. I don't like those TVs in comedy clubs, like because I feel as though like come on, we can't like
Focus on the
in a
one
room of
person in the room.
yeah, in a room of 200 people,
Yeah.
you still have to be watching a TV that to me doesn't make sense. But whatever, if I guess if it enhances people's experience, then God bless them. But yeah, I do wonder with like the larger ones now that they're playing football stadiums and baseball stadiums. Um, I wonder how people feel when they leave. I mean, if you're seeing someone you love, chances are you're going to leave happy anyway. But I wonder
Yes.
for people who see a lot of comedy, is it preferable?
And I feel like with each act that becomes an arena act, they just tweak it to find ways to make it a little bit better for the audience and a little more not intimate like a comedy club, but as best as they can to make it feel like you're at an intimate comedy show. Are you guys performing in the
Yeah.
round, or are you on one end?
We were on one end last night. The
Okay.
last time we played San Antonio, it's funny you bring that up. I remembered we were in the round the last time, but this time we did it at one end, which is my preference, having done enough of both. I mean, in the round is fun because you're like in the belly of the beast, but but I like them. I like just facing out, and not having to pivot and make sure
Have
that
your
you're
back to
touching.
certain people, even if it's for only a small amount of time. Your back is to still a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. So that I don't think that's ideal. But again, like those TVs do help with that too. Like people can, if your back is to them, they can watch the screen.
That's cool. Is Jim out there watching you guys every night, or is he just doing his own thing? Or is he still listening to see what's going on in the room like any headliner would in a club? You know how you just
You
kind of
know,
wait, stand in the back, or just listen? Not listening to what the comics are saying, but listening to what's going on in the crowd.
Yeah, well, with this, since his son comes on right after me, he's been coming like side stage to either shoot the sets with his phone or to listen. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
he's been out there right from the start because he likes to see how Jack does. Um, but typically, when it's just Jim and I touring, he's usually in his dressing room just getting ready for his set. I mean, I do have to say, he's probably the hardest worker that I've ever toured with. I've toured with a lot of great comedians and hardworking comedians. Louis and Lewis Black and Craig Ferguson.
Craig, yep.
Yeah, a lot of like just talented, funny people who work hard. But Jim is like another level as far as his preparation. He always listens to his sets. He's always writing. He'll bounce ideas off me. So I help him with some stuff too. And it's just like, yeah, he's relentless as far as, he's shooting another special next month, his 11th, I
I was
think.
just going to ask you how many numbers is that up to now? Wow.
Yeah, 11 specials. So this one's going to be in Boston at the Wilbur.
Oh, I was
Which is
just there last month with Dan Soder.
Oh,
I
nice, nice.
absolutely love the Wilbur. I
Is it?
have been there a couple times. I opened for Segura there, Brad Williams, Dan Soder. It is one of my absolute favorite venues in the Wilbur is comedy heaven.
It is, yeah, because it's intimate and it's like old school.
It's a
It's like an old
theater, but
theater.
it's intimate still. Like the
Yeah,
front row is right there on top of you, like a comedy club, and the balcony isn't that deep. So even though they're in the balcony on a second level, they're still kind of forward. It's
yeah.
such a cool venue. When are those shows? I'll plan a weekend trip.
Those are if you check my
I
website or Jim's website, it's end of April. I think it's probably maybe the 20th through the 26th. It's like a 6-night run, I'm pretty sure, at the
oh
Wilbur.
nice,
And those last 2 nights will be the taping of the
nice.
special.
Now
Yeah.
you live in Connecticut. Will you be going home each night? Is that a drivable gig for you?
It is in the sense that it's like 2.5 hours maybe from where I live,
Oh,
but
that's a no. That's a no.
yeah, no, we the family is going to come to me. They'll my wife and kids will come up for probably half the week.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Well, I'm
yeah,
making a note of that right here, and if I can swing it, I would come up for a day or two because I also love Boston.
yeah, it's a great city. And yeah, we're gonna just make a week of it. And my wife has family in Vermont, so they're gonna come down, and she'll come up, and yeah, it'll be fun, man. And also the taping of the special is always a fun occasion.
A fun
It's like
energy, and it's a different. There's a different kind of feeling in the air.
yeah, it's like graduation day. It's just special. So yeah, I mean, and with him, it is mind boggling. 11 hours. Like who else really has that? Like did Carlin even have 11? He may have.
I don't know. I mean, I really
11 hours,
don't know. 11 is
right?
a big, big number.
That's a big number.
What about like Robert Klein? I feel like maybe some of you just said Carlin. I feel like maybe some of those old school guys, because Klein had the first HBO special, I believe.
I
And
think those older guys like him, David
David
Brenner,
Brenner.
another Philly guy.
Yep.
He did a ton of TV spots. So maybe if you add all of those up, but I don't know how many of them recorded them as proper specials. I don't think those
Yeah.
guys the hour wasn't as prevalent as it's become.
Yeah, and now I feel like the hour, and I would love your opinion on this, is the hour on the decline. I mean, Netflix is putting out people's, 5 comics for 12 minutes, which I guess they did in the past with Rodney Dangerfield and all those specials. But even like, it seems like YouTube specials are now geared towards like 30, maybe 40 minutes tops. Have you
Yeah,
noticed
it's
that trend?
I have, and I think I'm of two minds with that. Like, you need the hour as a touring comic. You need
Absolute.
to be able to entertain a room full of people, whether that's a comedy club of a couple hundred people, or it's a theater of a couple thousand, or it's an arena. You need, as a live entertainer, to be to have that hour that is honed and solid, and it's an experience.
And you can bring that hour anywhere.
You can bring it anywhere and make your living touring with it. But then, as far as people consuming it at home or on their way to work, or on their phone, on their laptop, that's a different thing. They're not going to sit there for an hour. Like,
None of us
it's
do.
very yeah. Maybe the older generation still has that mindset of like, let's sit down and they're not looking at their phone the whole time. I mean, I had a joke about, like, how actors now, even Academy Award winning actors pour themselves into their roles and their preparation, and then, like, we sit and watch it on the couch, like, oh yeah, that's a good performance. Like, we're scrolling like sports scores.
So playing solitaire. Just
Yeah.
while
There's no such thing as like undivided attention. It's just like
I get mad at it, but I'm also guilty myself. And I'll be heavily invested in a documentary or like a nature series I'm watching, and I'm still just fucking scrolling. but I'm interested in what I'm watching. I just cannot give it 100% of my attention. I'll give it like 75.
Yeah, no, it's human nature. So to your
At this
earlier
point,
point,
yeah.
I think it's a good thing that, and I think it's good for more comics too, that that maybe don't have an hour, that they're,
and that's a lot of them.
Yeah, sure, yeah, that they're giving them maybe 15 minutes or 30 minutes on Netflix, whatever it winds up being. So I think it is smart for comedians, and also in the age of social media, right, that you can chop up your clips. It's smart to explore, like, whatever is going to get you more people seeing, even if it's a 1-minute joke, something pops, and then you don't know what's going to make you a draw.
No, not at all. And it's that's the thing. It's such a wide open field. There are no bounds. There's no industry to monitor it. You could put a joke out there that you don't even like. Just this is funny, but it's nowhere near my best stuff or my favorite stuff. And then that's the thing that could pop, and you're like, I don't even like. That's a throwaway joke that I forget to do most of the time.
Absolutely,
yeah, it's wild.
No, it's funny. And also touring with Todd too is a good reminder, because he's got almost like these two strains of his career with the stand up. But then he's also, like, with TikTok and Instagram, he does characters. He does like the Airbnb character, who is, like, very intrusive and just annoying the people that stay at his place. So yeah, he's got like a lot of character stuff that he does too, which is another reminder of, like, if you have an idea for a sketch or something, that could pop too.
And you just throw it all out there. I mean, throw it out there. I'm trying to have more fun. Excuse me, utilizing social media, but it's also just so exhausting. I see the benefits, and I feel good when a video of a joke gets like tens of thousands of views, but it's just exhausting. It's just exhausting, especially when, like,
I'm off.
What'd you say?
I'm off social media right now. Like, I go through phases where I'm totally in it, and I've even had social media managers where I just send them my stuff and they upload it, or they,
I have that right now.
Yeah. And it's helpful. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say one or the other is better, but for the last like 8 months, I've been off, other than posting one joke, like maybe a month, like for the Super Bowl.
The Chiefs joke is what you posted. Yep.
Yeah, but other than that, I've been entirely off social media for 8 months, and it's great, man. Like, again, I'm not saying like it's forever, but for now, like, you just realize how much time you just reach for your phone to scroll,
At nothing.
mindlessly
Yeah.
at nothing,
Well,
at nothing.
let me ask you this.
Time.
When you tour with Jim, do you notice you gain more of a social media following? Like people will follow you after the show? Oh my God, that guy was funny. Let's follow him right now.
Yeah, I don't know honestly right now because I'm not on it. But in the past, that's been the case where they announce our names at the end and they say follow Ted Alexandro. We say follow Todd Glass,
Mm-hmm.
Jack Ath. So yeah, there tends to be some people that do follow, or I'll get messages, that from people saying I saw you in Pensacola or whatever. But yeah, I've been off for so long now that I just don't. I feel as though like let me put it this way. I always had this sense, and I think this is what social media creates. This anxiety that I don't want to miss a message. I don't want to miss a potential gig.
I
I don't
feel
want to
that
miss,
1,000,000% right just by yep, 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 yep.
you know. But let me tell you something. After being off for 8 months, and then when I went back to post that Chiefs joke, because I wasn't checking my messages. I wasn't seeing like, did anyone try to get in touch? I was just off. So then when I went back, I'm like, I'm going to have like 1,000 messages. I'm going to have all these missed gigs that I should have taken, whatever. It was not. It wasn't as many as I thought it was going to be. It was kind of humbling. Like, oh, okay. I guess I could go away. It was almost like looking at my mortality. And then the second part of it was, it wasn't like I had a ton of, like, there was some things like, do you want to do my bar show or do you want to do this or that? But it was like no significant work that I missed because I was off social media.
I feel all of that. So there's a lot of good comics that I open for on a regular basis that I tour with. And I'm also getting more and more headlining work each year. And I feel like I greet the crowd after the show. I hand out my card. I have a dot card with a QR scan. They can go right to my social media. And it's just funny when you have a full weekend of 5 sold out shows, you greet hundreds of people. And then over the weekend, I get 7 new Instagram followers. Thank you, 7 people out of 1,200. And I mean, I'm glad they're there, but it's just like, how is that not at least 70 each weekend?
Yeah, no, I know.
So I'm saying, so in an arena, I would imagine that would be, whether you're on it or not, I would hope that that's an amazing opportunity for people to immediately become a follower, because that's an arena show. You're opening for Jim. Bam. Easy follow.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know how people are though. Like half the time, unless they know me from something else, half the time they'll be like the usual thing where, oh, that first guy was funny. Does anyone remember his name? Like,
nope,
people
nobody remembers comics, whether it's in a club or anywhere. Nobody remembers comics. I had somebody tell me recently, oh, I saw this woman. She was so funny. I was like, what was her name? She goes, she was wearing like a white blouse. I'm like, I didn't ask you what she fucking wore. Like, you're describing her to me by what she wore that night, and I was not there. That happened to me very recently.
Yeah, we're not in the witness protection program. You can go up to the front desk and say, who was the first comic? Like, it's not impossible information to attain.
But people will always remember bands or singers. I've noticed that. People will, I saw this great band last night. They were called Ted Alexandro and the Bookshelves. I don't know. But nobody ever, I'm looking at you and I'm looking at my bookshelf.
Maybe that's what I need to start marketing myself as Ted Alexandro and the Bookshelves. I'll just put a bookshelf behind me.
But how many millions of times have you heard in your career, oh, I saw this amazing comic, don't know their name? It's such a slap to every comic out there.
Yeah, I don't know what it is that they just have room in their brain for like 5 comics, and then the rest of us are like, that first guy.
Yep, that first guy. Dude, all right, so I got to tell you this. You and I go way, way back. We've probably known each other almost 20 years now, because I remember seeing your Comedy Central presents before we met, and you came to Helium when the club first opened in Philly, before they even had a liquor license.
That's right.
Yep, I was there for, I think, all of those shows probably, but when I think back to when my early days in stand up, my two favorite albums were Dave Attell, Skanks for the Memories, which still holds up today. It's still a fucking masterpiece. And
Yeah.
also your first album, As Much as You Want. I listened to that album a week ago, getting ready for this podcast, and I still laughed so hard at that album, man. I hope you're still happy with that, because I got to tell you, I laughed. I probably have it memorized, to be honest with you, because I saw you. We worked together a lot in those days too, and I mean, I got to tell you, kudos, because that album is still way, way up there on my list.
Oh, thanks, Pat. Yeah, man. I mean,
your other stuff too, but I mean, that album was monumental when I was brand new and I was learning stuff and watching you get physical with an actor, use the mic stand or contort your body or even sing a line. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And you have all of that on that album.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that was that album, As Much as You Want, was kind of a combination of my two Comedy Central presents.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lucky enough that I got my first one. I guess it was like maybe 6 years into my career that I got the first presents.
Which that blows my mind. Can I cut you off real quick? Because when I was under the impression when all these presents were coming out and I was devouring every single one, I thought every single person that had one was like a 20-year vet. And looking back, I realized there's a lot of 5 and 6 year people that got one, and that blew my mind because I did not know that 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, looking back, I'm sure we pissed off more than a few 20-year vets that, like we were getting you know how it is, because now I'm on the other end. So like, yeah, I'm sure there were 20-year vets who were like, who the hell is this guy jumping around the stage? So yeah, the first one I can't remember. I guess I was maybe six, maybe 7 years in, but early enough. And then the second one I got maybe 3 or 4 years later. So anyway, the album you're talking about was a combination of those 2 half hours. So it really is like, even I can listen back to it and it's great stuff. I mean, I love it. It makes me laugh. But the thing I laugh about is like how thick my New York accent was and how different my energy was on stage.
Both of those have stood out to me as well when I was listening. I was like, he definitely doesn't sound like that anymore. I recognize both of those.
Yeah, I think it was due to the fact that I hadn't traveled a whole lot. I was from Queens, and until I really started touring, I guess it wasn't like I worked with like some sort of elocution, coach or something to rid myself of my Queens accent, but it just happened over time. Do you find that like if you listen back to your early stand-up, do you have like a thicker Philly accent or anything?
The accent never stood out to me. I noticed that I don't speak as quickly as I used to. I'm more deliberate with my wording and I have a bit of a slower pace, which I like. But I recently went back within the last year and re-listened to my first album, which is 11 years old. And I thought I was going to cringe. And it was kind of the opposite. I was like, man, there's some really funny stuff I forgot about that I could bring back or still use again. And there was a couple jokes I was like, oh, I could never imagine saying that. But I really was like, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, and that's a nice feeling, right? Like
it's also 10 years in the making too for me. So like, I had been doing stand-up 10 years, so I did have a good hour in my arsenal. But looking back 10 years later, I was pleasantly surprised, and I did not hate it.
Yeah, no, that it is a nice feeling to, now as a 55-year-old man who's been doing stand-up for 30 plus years, to look back at my early stuff. I almost feel like I'm looking at a son or a kid, like, oh, that kid, he was good, like that's funny stuff, but it feels like another person,
Mm-hmm. I love the progression. I can see like with each of my albums, each just getting more personal and more honest. Like I just discover yourself more and you find a way to make it funny as opposed to just like jokes and jokes. You know what I mean? So like every comic kind of has that natural progression, unless you're truly strictly a joke writer, a Stephen Wright, a Mitch Hedberg,
Right. Yeah. No, there is for me like the progression of shedding the things that maybe you're hiding behind,
Hmm.
or that are a crutch or a barrier to like revealing yourself in some way.
Or you think
So
this is too personal or too deep to talk about, I can't bring this on stage, and that could be your golden ticket.
yeah, sure. Yeah. Storytelling or whatever the different things are, or maybe just even things that have some silences that have a payoff at the end rather than, that rhythm of joke, joke, joke. Because when you're starting out, you're terrified to go too far without a laugh.
Yeah, I do really enjoy taking them for a ride, and a lot of my stuff now is 3 minutes or more. So I really enjoy a build where there is the payoff, and I love when you're doing the setups and the crowd is totally silent because they're hanging on every word. I love when you know they are great listeners in addition to being great laughers. The great listening part is just as exciting and powerful as when the punchline hits.
Yeah, it's just a different rhythm, and you learn that you can do really whatever you want to do as long as you have a plan and you're committed to it. Because people listen differently to different types of jokes. If you go into the rhythm of a story, they adapt to it.
Hmm.
They're not going to be like, "Oh, this is boring." Like, where's the next punchline? They're
Hmm.
still listening. So yeah, you have to almost kind of. You have to learn that there are different rhythms and you can explore all of them. You don't have to, commit to just one style. So yeah, that's something that I think I grew into. So times when I did like stories and stuff, you have to learn to plant your feet, to allow for the different moments, the different colors. But like you say, then there's a payoff that comes from you're taking them through a different ride than set up punchline.
I love it. I love it. What's your writing process like right now? Do you write every day? Do you try to? Do you have it? Tell me how you do your work right now.
Well, it's a mix, because I have two toddlers, so it's
Not as easy
you
as it
know,
would like.
yeah, not as easy as I would like in terms of like finding time every single day. Because also, like, I'm away now for like 11 days in a row. So then when I get back, I want to spend time with them. I want to give my wife a break. So I'll go into dad mode where I'll spend a bunch of days in a row where I'm doing the lion's share of just taking them places and being with them. So it's kind of fits and starts, and or I'll say to my wife, I need a few days in a row where I get like 2-3 hours, and so it's just that kind of negotiation of
Yes.
figuring out schedules, which wasn't the case when I was single up until age 48.
Hmm.
Um, but it's great. I like this phase of life, and my style now is just kind of finding those pockets. Still the same discipline of sitting and writing for. I try to make it like at least an hour. 2 hours is more of a sweet spot because then you can get into a flow or maybe get over a hump
Yeah.
where like nothing's coming for the first hour. Yeah, but also just the process of always having the antenna up, always, just saying something into your phone of a note that occurs to you, and most importantly, always trying things out. Like because that's the most important thing. I know I can do. Like on this tour, for instance, I can do a 5 minute set. I can do a 10 minute set in my sleep, but I don't want to be in my sleep. I want to be present. I want to try the new thing. I want to be a little bit nervous about the new idea.
That's
So
awesome.
that's yeah,
That's
that's the
really
thing.
cool that you're so loose in that setting because I didn't know, if you're doing an opening five, are you doing the same set verbatim every night because it's a strong opening five, or are you still loose with it because you're so comfortable in your career? Both make sense to me, but like if you're doing five in an arena opening, you have a very serious job to do.
Yeah, but you also, you have enough experience that like I know I'm not going to tank in the 5 minutes I'm up there, and I have a sense of okay, I have to like shift to a higher gear, and if something's not working. But yeah, it's almost like you realize there's nothing to be afraid of. If you're going up there with ideas and trying things out, you see how it goes, and if it doesn't go well, you shift to something
Well,
else.
that was going to be my next question. I mean, you're touring with Jim, doing all these arenas. These crowds are there to see a great show. They're in a great mood. But is it still like a comedy club where certain sets are better than others? You're like, whoo, that wasn't great.
Yeah, yeah. There's always nights where you feel like, oh, maybe I didn't bring it, or that crowd wasn't great, or
Mhm.
whatever. But it is. It just becomes what you're playing now. Like I'm opening for Jim a good portion of my dates. So my job is to warm up the crowd for his audience, but also, to keep doing my own thing, and Jim is very supportive of that. It's not like he's like, oh, you have to kill, or you have to do this or that, because he's always working on new stuff. So
He
it
tr-
gives me, yeah, it gives me the liberty. He doesn't put any kind of constraints
tr-
on what I can do.
trusts you to totally do your own thing.
Yeah, yeah, which is great.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Magic Mind. I am a comedian and I struggle with being productive. Sometimes it's hard for me to just sit down and do the work, but the great folks at Magic Mind have just the thing to help me with that. It is a great little energy drink that boosts my energy and my focus. I typically have it in the morning after my coffee or when the coffee wears off, but this little bottle, this one little quick shot, does the trick and allows me to sit down, get the work done while also feeling calm and relaxed. If you go to magicmind.com/do it and enter the promo code DOIT20, all caps, that is magicmind.com/do it, with the promo code DOIT20, you can get 50% off the next 10 days by using the promo code DOIT20. The good folks over at Magic Mind, thank you for all your support. I did want to talk to you about this. We didn't really discuss this too much the last time you were a guest on my podcast, but you, like myself, come from a musical background. You played the piano as a child and still as an adult. Do you still play now?
I do. We have a piano in the house. We got one, I guess, within the last 2 years. So that's been nice to play, and to play with my kids, because they have like their little instruments, guitars, drums, tambourines. So we've been playing a lot of Creedence Clearwater Revival lately. That's kind of like the favorite.
That's awesome. What songs do the kids prefer to play from Creedence?
Bad Moon Rising, Bad Moon on the Rise, I guess it's called.
Yeah.
Down on the Corner. Uh,
Down on the corner.
Out in the street.
So
Yeah,
which kid plays which instrument? What's the Partridge Family dynamic here? Tell me about Ted Alexandro and the bookshelves and the
yeah. The bookshelves they're good. I think they're going to go solo. My son Nico plays the guitar, and then Goldie has a ukulele. So she's either on the ukulele, or she'll grab.
I got mine right here.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Hers is
Yep.
pink, but it's essentially the same. And she'll grab like a recorder type thing. So yeah, we have one of those as well. As a former music teacher, I have plenty of recorders around.
That is hilarious. Now, do your kids understand your occupation at all?
Yes and no. I mean, they've come to the theater on a couple of occasions for sound check. So they'll be there. They'll hold the microphone. They'll say check 1 2. But they haven't been in the room when I'm performing, because usually, like the shows are after their bedtime.
Yes.
So yeah, so they haven't been in the room. They've seen videos, and they understand that, like, I say things and people laugh. Yeah, but they don't really grasp what's going
Yeah,
on.
you said they're toddlers, but I was going to ask if your kids have heard your recorder bit yet, because when
No,
they get older and understand that, they're going to laugh so much more with the fact that they are blasting that at home.
yeah. Yeah, no, they don't fully grasp it yet. They know that I'm away too much. They know that, but yeah, they have a sense that I'm performing. I'm in front of people.
Hmm.
And to your earlier question about music, I think music was really my entree into the arts and to the world of the arts, and also planted the seed of wanting to find a path in the arts, because I would play the piano. I took lessons from the time I was about 6, I guess, and I would play at school assemblies. I had my repertoire of, like, if it was a rainy day, one of the school aides would be like, "Yeah, okay, we're not going out for lunchtime today. Ted, can you come and play some piano?" So I would play for, like a couple hundred kids. I'd play like the theme to the Peanuts or like the theme to Rocky.
Oh
I had
wow.
my repertoire of songs that I would pull out. So yeah, that I was in front of a lot of people and performing, and loved it, and then that kind of segued into doing a lot of theater in high school and college, and then sketch comedy. I was a music major. I studied jazz piano in college. So I just didn't know, like, how can I forge some sort of path in the arts? Because I loved being around creative people and the arts. But eventually that just wound up being sketch comedy, and then duo comedy with my friend Hollis James, and then eventually decided to try to do it solo. So yeah, that was how it just kind of came about organically.
It's such an awesome path, man. That's so cool that you were playing piano for crowds that size, like when you were a kid. Because I've been playing guitar for over 30 years, but I like just do it at home. Like I
Yeah.
love it more than anything. But it's just strictly like nobody's going to see that. Nobody, very few times I've played publicly. I just know it's the guitar in public is not for me.
Would you
Unless
ever?
I've had a couple Jamesons in me, then I'll like hop into band. I will not sing. I will not sing. I'll do stand up in front of 10,000 people, but you can not pay me to sing into a microphone. But
Now, is that because you don't like the sound of your voice, or you're just self conscious?
all of the above, and I'm positive I do not have a good singing voice. Like I just don't have a good singing voice. I like mouth along as I'm playing guitar and like totally sing along with a band, but I'm not putting my mouth up to the microphone. But then I'll go talk about my dick in front of 5,000 people every other night. Doesn't bother me at all.
Well, what if you had a funny idea for a song, and you're like, "Well, I'm not doing it as Pat House. I'm doing it as this character or whatever." Do you think you would ever do that, either as like a TikTok video, or like
I,
could you make that jump?
I don't know. I mean, that idea has absolutely floated around in my mind, but I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. That's maybe another creative barrier I need to overcome. But like
Yeah,
as a character would absolutely soften the blow.
I think people are just fascinated when people have multiple skills. So they know you as a comedian, and then you're like breaking out your guitar, and it's like, oh shit, Pat, Pat can play guitar too. And if you have some funny idea, or a character or a song, or I mean, sometimes, as you well know, from seeing musical comedians in the clubs over the years, like a song can be a great vehicle to bring a comedic idea to fruition, like, because maybe it's a parody of a song you already know, or but it's just like a good vessel for a joke, and people have their defenses down, because I think music kind of just they're listening differently than they do to a set up punchline kind of deal.
I never thought of it that way, but they probably are listening differently. What are you listening to right now? Like, what's on your playlist, or what artists, or what are you jamming to on tour?
Well, on tour, it's a lot of podcasts and
Oh, okay.
a lot of Bitcoin content. I'm big into Bitcoin, so I've been listening to that, uh, like what Bitcoin did and stuff like that. But when I'm with my kids, they they have like a playlist that songs kind of come in and out of, but they have great taste. So they like will introduce stuff, but then it tends to be the classics that stick, like Creedence, John Fogerty, the Beatles, the Stones, Joni Mitchell.
Oh, I love it.
That tends to be the stuff that they want to keep hearing, or even like classic things like doo-wop, like Danny and the Juniors singing at the Hop. Like it's like an old '50s doo-wop song.
Uh huh.
but these classic songs resonate with these, little kids. And then if I introduce something else or anything that's like, even like a little melancholy, they're not having it. It's got to be up. Oh, you know who they love? They also love the Traveling Wilburys.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, my son, he just turned 4. He's
Big Roy Orbison fan.
he can name all 5 of the Traveling Wilburys. It's like, how many adults? That's got to put him in less than 1% of the world population that can name all 5 Traveling Wilburys.
I would absolutely agree with that. I could probably think of a million adults off the top of my head right now that could not answer that question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone thinks their kid's special, but I think that is pretty special to name. Because Jeff Lynne is the one that I think would stump most people. They're gonna get Dylan, probably
Harrison,
right? Tom Petty.
Yep.
But I think Orbison and Jeff Lynne would be the ones that would weed out the men from the boys.
I'm going to listen to the Traveling Wilburys today. I got some errands to run, and just by you saying that, that's what's going to be happening in the car.
Oh, such great songs, man. You wonder, of course, you're always skeptical with supergroups. But and then you do the deep dive on how the band formed. I think it was George Harrison was putting together an album, and he's friends with all of those guys, obviously. And I think maybe Jeff Lynne was producing, because he does a lot of production work too.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Lynne of ELO. So yeah, he got them together, and they recorded one song, I think, "Handle with Care."
Yep.
And then
I think that was the first one, yeah.
Right. And then from there, they said, it was going to be a one-off. And they were like, let's do an album. So, yeah, I mean, that was such great music.
It's not even a Traveling Wilbury song, but Roy Orbison's "You Got It" has been a favorite song of mine since I was a kid. And that's Tom Petty and George Harrison just singing backup.
They're backup on that one?
Yep. Yeah.
I wonder if that was, do you think it was from the same era?
It had to have been, because that was mid-'80s. I guess. Yeah. But it's just crazy that there's just this random Roy Orbison song where George Harrison and Tom Petty are just singing backup for shits and giggles.
I mean, that's what I love about music too, is like, because as comedians, we don't really get to do that where, let me sing backup on your thing, or let me do, we don't get to collaborate in that way that musicians do. I wish we did.
Well, in all fairness, you did the coolest thing in any Comedy Central Presents when you had Dave Attell, Russ Maneve, and Todd Barry come out for the Hotel Rwanda joke. That was awesome. That is seriously one of the funniest and coolest things I've ever seen in a comedy special, because, I love all those guys, but just the fact that you had 4 comics come out to do one joke, and everybody in that joke is their own personality to the T.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I love.
How'd you? Yeah, tell me about that, please.
I love doing that because I had seen other comedians do things in specials that were, I think like Zach Galifianakis brought out like maybe a gospel choir, or
he did to sing "Eternal Flame."
right. Mm-hmm. So, I was just thinking, like, is there anything I can do for my second one? I was like, anything I could do that would feel, authentic for me. And then I have a joke about how rappers are always collaborating. So then that kind of led into me thinking like, oh, okay, like maybe I can work this into actually having guys come out. Because I was like, comedians don't do that, like, where we have guest stars on our jokes.
Yeah.
So then
I didn't even know how to phrase that, but I'm glad you said it for me, because I was like, what do you call that?
Yeah. So I reached out to, and mind you, I was probably about 10 years in. It wasn't like I was a veteran and knew these guys forever, but I had worked with I was friends with Russ Maneve. He was a peer, but Todd was a little bit ahead of me. Attell was ahead of me. So these guys were at a different level than me. So I was a little bit, kind of trepidatious to reach out and say, hey, will you be on my Comedy Central special? But I had good relationships with them. And also another little caveat not to call out to call out Russ, but he was like a last minute addition because Greg Giraldo was going to be Giraldo and Todd and David Tell, but for whatever reason, Greg couldn't make it. So yeah, I don't know if he got a gig out of town or something happened. So
day of, like, did you find out day of and have to get Russ that day?
I don't think it was that day, but it was maybe a few days before. But luckily, Russ is like one of my closest friends and had his own half-hour special. So I figured, like, let me have Russ do it too. So yeah, luckily he was available, came down. And, it was funny because it was a little bit of a fight with these guys because Todd was like, I don't know, is this going to work? Attell was like, I don't know, this sounds a little gimmicky. I'm like, trust me. Oh, because Dave said something like, are they going to react? Like, how are they going to react when I come out? I'm like, Dave, they're going to react like we're the Rolling Stones, like they're going to love it when you come walking out. Because they're not going to expect it during a comedy special.
Yeah.
So sure enough, when they come out, there's like a 20-second applause.
Yes.
Because it's Todd Barry, Attell, and Russ. And so we had to wait. We had to like take a beat, and then the rest of it, like you said, the Hotel Rwanda joke. So that was the second part of it. I was like, okay, if I'm actually going to do this, what joke can I break into 4 parts so that like Todd takes one line, Russ takes one line, and Attell takes one. So the Hotel Rwanda joke was enough of almost like a setup punch where it was the joke was I saw the movie Hotel Rwanda, so I delivered that line, and then Todd said, I think something like, I don't know who financed that movie, and then I'm chopping it up wrong, but we each had a line, and then Attell's final thing was, I don't know who financed that movie, but I think it may have been the Holiday Inn Rwanda.
Yes, and that sounds like that could even be part of a Dave Attell joke himself. That sounds like a line he would come up with. Yeah,
it does, right? It does. So, and then another thing that kind of made it more of an annoyance for Dave was Comedy Central messed up the director messed up the recording of his shot or the audio or something. So Dave had to come back to the theater the next day for a close up to so as
just
if he didn't
say the one line.
Yeah, as if he didn't do me enough of a solid, he had to come back and reshoot his line. So if you ever watch that special, or I don't know if it's probably online somewhere.
It's on all the presents are on Hulu, and I find myself watching them to like relive my childhood and all the episodes that got me in this.
Yeah. So Dave had to come and redo his thing. And then another interesting caveat was that Comedy Central wouldn't okay it because they would have had to pay those guys. So I said, well, can I pay them out of my salary? And they're like, yeah, you have to pay like the day rate or whatever it is. I'm like, fine, whatever it is. To me, it's worth it to have these guys do the joke in my special. So I had to take it out of my thing because Comedy Central wouldn't put it in the budget.
Please tell me other comics appreciated that, though, because it's so fucking well done and so funny. I just really hope that was well perceived amongst your peers.
Oh, yeah. I think it made it memorable, again, because like when you're doing these half hours and there's so many of them coming out, anything that kind of marks it as different or special, and especially something like that it actually lands and it is effective. That's what I was going for. I was going for something that was different and would mark it in a slightly different way,
Yeah, that has always stuck with me, man. I wanted to ask you, a couple years ago, you had a bit lifted by SNL, your Zillow bit. Whatever came of that? Long story short, you have an amazing bit about how you and your wife do not sext, but you send each other Zillow ads, properties, and then SNL made a skit about it, and it was, clear as day, lifted from your bit. Whatever came of that?
Nothing is the short answer.
I had a feeling.
it wasn't like I didn't pursue any legal action, but what I did was I kind of took it as an opportunity to just have some fun on social media and call them out. And
I
it
chimed
also,
in. I was retweeting for you. I was posting my own opinions, and yeah,
thank you.
I
Yeah,
remember this.
well, a lot of comedians have disdain for SNL because they have a long history of doing that kind of thing. So I think a lot of people didn't hesitate to chime in and and condemn them. But it coincided with Super Bowl weekend, so I kind of had fun with it, and I said I'm going to do a press conference at halftime of the Super Bowl. So I went live, like so it was just like it got a lot of press, and then press was contacting me and saying, oh, we want to do an interview with you. And so I took a bunch of things with like whatever it was. I can't even remember what the outlets were, but yeah, it just took on a life of its own. So with these things, sometimes the best thing you can hope for is that it gets attention and it gets you more followers, and people are aware of, like, that your joke was stolen by SNL.
Yeah, the thievery
You
and
know,
making sure you were the credit, but you should be the credit behind it. It was
yeah,
your idea.
you capitalize on that so that at least people are aware it's your joke. And also, like, I didn't want to be doing the joke on stage because SNL is such a huge institution. I don't want people thinking, like, if they see me do the joke in a club, they're like, oh, that's, he took that from
You
SNL or
stole
whatever.
it from them.
Right, right.
It's fucked up.
So, yeah. But yeah, I didn't really care in the long run, but I did want a public record that this is my joke.
Yeah. Did that stem from like writers hanging in the comedy clubs who are also comics who also write for SNL? Is that kind of the genesis of that happening in the past?
Yeah, I mean, there's a distinct possibility because there's always a few stand-up comedians on staff there as writers, as performers, and it's such a dog-eat-dog world, a competitive environment there of just trying to get ideas through that, and trying to justify their spot on the staff, that I'm sure in a moment of panic, they're, either intentionally or, not, they'll throw out ideas that they've seen somewhere. Maybe they're not consciously saying, I saw Ted do this last night and I'm gonna, but maybe, who
Well,
knows?
yeah.
But
Well, they say Robin Williams had that kind of mind where he didn't even know. I mean, huge, amazing talent, but also notorious joke thief.
yeah,
But they say, I mean, I don't know whether it's true or not, so I cannot confirm or deny, but they say his mind was so quick and so rapid and he would just hear stuff and retain it that sometimes he did not even know he was stealing. And when he was confronted, he would pay people off and like was very polite about it, but
right.
yeah, there was a lot of stories with him when it came to that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it was malicious intent. I mean, I met him once at the Cellar. He seemed very sweet natured and almost retiring by nature. But yeah, obviously he had that gear that he would shift when he was on stage, and I'm sure back in the drug haze of the 70s
Yes.
and 80s, like that takes it another level where you're not totally conscious of things you're saying and doing.
Yeah, there
Um,
was some other factors at the time, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, for comedians, obviously our jokes are, that's everything to us, so you have to at least in today's era, you have to make that public kind of declaration of like, that's mine, I
Yeah.
wrote that. Yeah.
Yes, especially with social media is very big on, well, for the most part, I guess, getting the right source now is, it's definitely gotten better with that kind of stuff.
Well, there's an interesting thing. I don't know if you've ever seen this, Pat, where there's a French comedian who went back through like all of the half hours, like you were talking about. And there's a compilation video on YouTube. If you look up French comedians stealing bits, it's
I'm
hilarious.
gonna French. Is that the exact? I'm writing it down now. Is that the exact wording? French. Well, I'll find it.
More or less.
French
Yeah.
comedian stealing should bring me.
Steals jokes, steals bits from Comedy Central, half hours. So I was one of many, and then they put them side by side so you can see, like, so he stole my cop on a bike bit from years ago, which is a pretty like distinct bit.
Yes.
about, like what's next, a cop on a pogo stick, and then I'm like jumping around.
Into the Etch-a-Sketch line.
And right. It's like comparing the a sketch artist to an Etch-a-Sketch artist. Like, was he going downstairs by chance? So this French guy, was stealing bits verbatim, and of course nobody knew because this was just like the advent of the internet. But his whole act was lifted. So they show like Kevin Brennan and this guy side by side, Attell, Hedberg. He was just stealing from everybody, and he was very successful French comedian. And he was like, "Oh, I did not know," blah, blah. But yeah, he just like he made quite a name for himself by stealing everyone's jokes.
Dude, I don't know how that got by me. I did not know that, and I'm pretty privy with a lot of stuff within stand-up. I'd never heard that story, but I'll absolutely look it up.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. It's entertaining.
All right, one more thing, and then I want to let you go, dude. I have been a fan of yours forever. You're one of the comics. When people ask me who should I listen to, who should I check out, I always mention you, and I've been a fan of your whole career. I'm curious to know what other creative endeavors do you see yourself getting into down the line?
Other creative endeavors. I mean, with a life in the arts, you never really can predict what will come up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you for instance. Jim got a gig a couple months ago hosting this event for Music Cares. Music Cares is this nonprofit that helps the music industry or people in the industry who are struggling, maybe with bills or medical bills or whatever it might be. So Jim was asked to host this event, and they honor a different person every year. So they were honoring John Bon Jovi as their person of the year this particular year. So Jim asked me to help him write his monologue and write the bits and all this stuff. So, we had a week, so I had to like cram all my knowledge of John Bon Jovi. And, I know his music, but, in order to write jokes about someone that are funny, but also don't cross a line, you have to, do your research. So
it's a fine line.
Sure. So to learn about him, his family, a great family man, and has been married to his high school sweetheart. And they do all of this philanthropic work. But my point is, this gig kind of came out of nowhere where Jim was like, help me write this. And next thing we know, it's a table. The front table is Bon Jovi, his family, Paul McCartney, Bruce Springsteen. Just insane. And the gig went great, and the bits that I wrote for Jim and the gags that I came up with for Jim to do, because like a lot of it was spoofing a lot of Bon Jovi's like early style choices and the hair and the outfits. And then Jim came out at one point because I kind of said, you got to do this. He came out in like short, like Daisy Dukes, because there was a poster of Bon Jovi where he was wearing essentially like Daisy Dukes and a belly shirt. So I said to Jim, I was like, if you have the balls to do this, I think it'll go over. So, he wore the wig, he wore the Daisy Dukes, the belly shirt, he went out. And the whole night was like a big hit. And then I got to meet, Bon Jovi, his wife and kids. I got to meet Bruce, Melissa Etheridge. So it was just such a cool night and such a cool experience to be able to write jokes about John Bon Jovi that he loved. And he was, he came up to me. He's like, were you responsible for some of it? I was like, yeah, I wrote a lot of it. But that it made him laugh, and that it made a room full of people, because those things could be hit or miss, like these kind of benefit type environments.
Yes.
But it really brought the room to life, and everybody had a good time. So my larger point is, you just don't know what is coming next, and the people you might cross paths with. So yeah, I just kind of try to keep an open spirit to, hoping that another cool thing comes down the pike, and also recognizing that the engine for all of it is my act and my jokes. So putting my effort into that, because then all of the ancillary things that come along are really driven by that.
Well, whatever you do, I look forward to seeing it, man. Did you meet Paul McCartney?
He walked by, but he was kind of in a rush at the end of the show. So he walked right by me, and that was enough. But yeah, I got to shake hands with Bruce, and his mom had just passed like that day before. So it was kind of a surprise that he still was able to do it. But yeah, I got to shake hand and just say thank you for everything,
Everything.
Yeah, yeah. And Bon Jovi I got to speak with for a good, few minutes, and that was cool too. He's just a good guy, like it wasn't like Bon Jovi was like my band or anything, but if you grew up when I did, you grew up loving, a lot of their music and hearing it all the time.
Yeah, well,
So,
when you think of, in my mind, being from Philadelphia with Jersey being next door, Bruce and Bon Jovi are the two Jersey representatives. So even if
yeah.
Bruce's mom passed the day before, I feel like he would have to be there
Yeah.
because those two names are synonymous in my mind as they are New Jersey.
Yeah, it was kind of it was kind of a surreal event in that way. It was a surreal night. I'm from Queens, so all of these things are not they're not that far away. Obviously, Jersey, Philly, we're all the Northeast, and so to be in a room, and also like it kind of almost spans your lifetime, like because Bon Jovi, he's not that much older than me. He's probably 60 or something, but it's almost like a this is your life moment because I was in high school and college when that band first broke, and Slippery When Wet, and Living on a Prayer, and the phenomenon that all that was. So yeah, so here I am now, where
Just talking to the dude,
and really over the course of that week, really truly growing to have a deep respect for him and his wife and the family that they've built, and the career and the way that they use their celebrity. They do so much good. So yeah, it was just like a really cool moment in time, really.
That's awesome, dude. Ted, I can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you for coming back on the pod. It was great to talk shop and get these stories out of you. And when the day comes down the line, you will be my first three-peat.
Yeah, baby. I look forward to being the three-peat. And Pat, it's always great to spend time with you, buddy. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, man. Hopefully we cross paths this year and maybe even do some gigs together down the line.
That'd be great.
Ted Alexandro, everybody. Thank you.